This chenille yarn reminded me of something vintage, so I used it differently. Hi friends, thank you so much for coming by and visiting with me today. Oh, I have a fun video for you all. If you all know me, if you've been here before, you know that I love vintage things. Anything from vintage dishes, vintage clothing, vintage crochet patterns, vintage. I love vintage. I collect a lot of vintage pieces from, as I said, crochet patterns to Pyrex. That's one of my personal favorites that I collect, including vintage Tupperware. I also love my vintage Tupperware. So when I saw this yarn by Loops and Thread, and the name is Antique Rose Blossom, I knew immediately I had to find ways that I could incorporate this into my home that weren't just the usual suspects. So I'm just going to share with you the 4 things I made with that yarn. So we're going to go with the first thing, and I'll give you a close-up of this in a minute. If you've seen my last few videos, you may have noticed the new blanket that is on the back of the chair. This is the first thing I made with that vintage yarn. The stitch I used was the Suzette stitch, and to me, it just looks like the roses are climbing up an arbor or, an awning. I just absolutely loved it. I did trim it in some green Loops and Thread chenille just because I couldn't find this red. I really wanted that pinky color, but I could not find it. So it does have like a greenish tinge to it, which I think the green sets it off beautifully. But it's a warm blanket, it's a soft blanket, and as usual, Lily has decided it is hers. She's laid with me while I made it, and she's constantly trying to pull this down on top of her. So that is one of the most usual things you will make with chenille yarn. I think we can all agree on that. This is my own pattern using the Suzette stitch. I just figured out how many chains I wanted it, how wide I wanted it. That's how many chains I did. I think I did 60 or 62 on this, and then just did until I had the size I wanted for my lap. I literally just wanted it lap size. The next thing that is usually pretty typical of the chenille yarn, I would say even more so than the blanket, are plushies. And when I saw this pattern, I knew not only I had to make it, but it would be perfect to try with some leftover of that yarn from the blanket. I had just enough left over, I knew I wanted to make something. And as I said, this is a free pattern on Instagram, and I will link it down below. I made the world's cutest little dragonfly. So I used the green that I trimmed the blanket with, and I used the Antique Rose Blossom as its wings. And I could not be happier. This was very, very simple pattern, very easy. It's not a no-sew, but it's a low-sew. I had to do these. I had to sew on the wings, but I think he's pretty adorable. He's even got some little pink blush cheeks. Grace has already pretty much claimed this. She fell in love with this. So I would say these 2 things are what you think of when you think of chenille yarn. But I knew I wanted to incorporate it in more ways than just the traditional. The next thing I made is very, very personal to me. And I knew I wanted to make a Bible cover, and I was originally going to try and sew one. My sewing skills are not great, but I thought I could handle a Bible cover. And then I thought, why not crochet one? Well, I have a lot of this yarn left. Why not try making it with the chenille yarn? So that's exactly what I did. And I think it turned out beautifully. I am really, really happy. Fun fact, I originally made this for a different Bible, and then David surprised me recently with this most gorgeous Bible with the Celtic cross on the leather. Yeah, he surprised me with this. I did not know this was coming, but it has a larger print, which I need. And the Bible I had was very small. It was actually my father's. And the tabs I wanted to add to it were not fitting right. And the Bible is like 70 years old. And I was worried about putting those stickers on, and David was too. So he surprised me. But anyway, because it's chenille, I was able to stretch it to fit this size, because the other Bible, like I said, is smaller, and it does fit. And then I just did a crocheted applique of a cross and just sewed it on. So it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I love this. It protects my Bible. It gives it something a little bit easier to hold on to when I'm reading. So there's no pattern with my Bible cover. I just, again, chained it for however long I wanted it. I can't even remember now what I did. And I just did back loop half double crochet all the way until I got the length. And then I went a little bit longer so I could make these little flaps right here, the flaps, to go over the cover, and then just sewed them with some of the yarn to make the little flap. So, and then I just did a simple, I think I did a simple half double crochet in the pink around. So that was it. Thought, what a great way to incorporate that chenille yarn in other ways. My last way is really out of the box. I love using yarn in so many different ways besides just crocheting. I have used them in other decorating. And one of the ways I used it in decorating was up in my bedroom. I made this wall hanging out of some leftover tealy tweed yarn that I had. And I loved this yarn a couple years ago. I didn't have enough left to make anything else, but I thought I could make a wall hanging because I have a lot of teal in my house, including in my bedroom. So I knew I could make that, but I didn't necessarily want to make another one exactly like that. And I have been brushing up on embroidery. It's something I've always wanted to learn, and there's a lot of embroidering that can happen with crochet. So I wanted to have better stitches and just something a little bit different. It is so much fun to take something like that with you that you don't necessarily have to have all your yarn and everything. You just take your embroidery hoop, whatever you're working on, maybe some of your threads. Anyway, I thought, I wonder if I could do that with crochet. And I did. And so I just crocheted a circle that was just a little bit bigger than this hoop that I picked up at Michael's. I actually have picked up more hoops too at the thrift store just recently because this is going to be a thing. I'm going to be doing some more. So I just did a circle until it was like a good inch over the size of my hoop. Squeezed it in here, which I will say that was the hardest part, squeezing this circle in between here because it is thick. But between myself and David, we were able to get it in there. And then I thought, well, what do I want to do? So I'm not sure how I'm going to hang it. This technically is probably the way it would hang because the mechanism to tighten it is right here. I originally was going to do it this way, but now that I'm looking at it, I kind of like the way it's kind of like growing. And I thought, how about I just do some simple leaves? Because it's already flowers, right? Technically, those little pink things represent the roses. So I just made leaves. I chained this, figured out how long I wanted it, made 6 leaves, and just placed them where I wanted, sewed them on. This is the back, which you won't see. And I'm going to hang that. And I mean, I definitely think this is out of the box for using that chenille yarn. So I guess out of all 4 of these projects, my most surprising would have to be the embroidery hoop. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. I wasn't even sure what it was going to look like. I knew I was hoping it would turn out. It turned out better than I hoped. I really think it's different. And I hope it just shows you that you can use this yarn in so many other ways than not only just crocheting, but crocheting the typical things. You can use it and the things that maybe aren't so typical. So you have to let me know down in the comments, out of these 4, which one surprised you most that I made. Also let me know down in the comments, what would you use this plushie yarn for? Especially if it's something I haven't already said. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe it's something I can make in a future video. So thank you for visiting with me, friends. Well, I showed you 4 of the chenille projects I have been working on this last week. I've been so excited to share them all with you. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you're watching on a mobile device, you might see that little hype button underneath this video. If you could just hit that for me, it's greatly appreciated. A lot of you have been hyping my videos, and it's showing. My channel has grown. I reached 2,200 subscribers and 90,000 views this past week. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. This yarn crochet community is the best. I appreciate it so much. You're all wonderful. We'll see you all soon.